Do you ever think about quitting your job, leaving everything, and traveling the world? Be it on a bicycle, hitchhiking, or just generally traveling for a long period of time. My name is Adam Hugill. In 2018, I did exactly that. I left my job. I was a British Army officer and then decided to travel the world by bicycle. And I want to really talk about why going on a big adventure might not be the thing that will solve the answers that you're looking for. If you're looking for adventure, then there's another way. I'm going to go right back. I'm going to go back to 2014. I decided to go on a bike trip when I was out in Afghanistan. I was working in a logistical headquarters in Helmand province during the withdrawal, the collapse of all the big base, Camp Bastion. Whilst I was there, I was pretty bored and unfulfilled, if I'm being quite honest. It felt not that dangerous to me. I trained for years to lead soldiers into combat, and when I got there, my job was to effectively be a liaison officer and provide some intelligence reports, and it wasn't really what I trained for. I read this book by a guy called Alistair Humphreys, who's well known in the bike touring world, and Al Humphreys had travelled the world by bicycle. He'd lived the adventure that I was dreaming of. And as I read through his story about him travelling 40,000+ kilometres for over 3 years, I felt, why aren't I doing this? Why aren't I travelling the world on a bicycle? It infected my brain with the idea that I could have a huge adventure without the army, without the money, without the status that gives me, and just do my own thing. Fast forward a number of years, I eventually set off on my bike trip, but there were reasons not to. I had a job, as I've already mentioned. I already worked really hard to get to that point. I had built a community and a life, and I effectively ditched it to go and selfishly do a big adventure. Coming home on that bike trip was harder than continuing. It sounds a bit weird, that, but the bike trip started to become mundane. It started to become routine. It wasn't really that difficult to just cycle every day. What was home back in the UK wasn't appealing. It wasn't really like, oh, let's come home and have a great life. I felt like staying on the bike trip was the easy option. So I decided to take the scary option and really seek adventure in that way. I then returned home, no money, no job, and no real sense of identity at this point. I was still me, but I was no longer on a bicycle. I was no longer an army officer. I was sleeping on the floor of my brother's bedroom, going out partying, drinking too much, and I wasn't in a good place. There's a number of people I'd like to mention as adventurers that I look up to, that I've learnt lessons from, and add in some of my own lessons from my own adventure that will hopefully help you to work out, how do I bring adventure to my day-to-day life? How do I don't feel bored, or how do I not have a mundane existence? One of the first people, someone I've already mentioned, is Alistair Humphreys. He wrote a book about micro-adventures, and his whole book about micro-adventures is about going on small trips near your home, outside your home, that are cheap and easy to do. And that could be something as simple as, one of his examples was going down a river and building a raft and floating down it. He did another micro-adventure where he walked around the M25. There's loads of things you can do from your doorstep. You don't have to have loads of money. You can do anything with the time, a weekend, a night, a week if you manage to have that long, and you can have a huge adventure. Another person I'd like to mention that champions this is Beau Miles. Now, Beau Miles is one of the best storytellers on this planet. He tells these beautiful, elaborate stories about some of the most mundane things you could imagine. The guy spent ages eating beans. Like, that doesn't sound very interesting. I've just seen a recent video he's published about picking up litter on a run. Now, these sound quite boring, but the way Beau tells these stories, it's all about finding adventure on your backyard. He's got a book called Backyard Adventurer. The thing I've learned from Beau Miles is how he balances having a family, having a wife, living in a beautiful place, and being able to put his hand and put himself into projects and really tell a story, show the creative side whilst also doing something that might appear quite mundane. He has shown me that I don't need to go and travel the world for a huge adventure. I can do it where I live now, and I'm inspired by his content, and hopefully will make something similar myself, where I might do something really mundane and try and tell a good story about it. We'll see. Another person who I'd like to talk about, and someone I've learnt lessons from, is Ryan van Duzer. Now Ryan and I have briefly met when I was at the end of my bike trip, and we became friends over a day, and Ryan's been nothing but positive to me personally, but I'm sure he's only been positive to the people he's met on his journeys and people that engage with him. What inspires me about Ryan is that he lives where he grew up. He lives in a beautiful town, Boulder, Colorado, and he is an advocate for building community. He goes on his adventures, he goes away, traveling on his bicycle very often, or running, and he'll go and spend time, however long it takes, to go away and film something, but he always returns home and he's committed to his own community. Now that's something I'm really trying to bring to where I live. I'm part of a swimming group here where I swim most days. I also cycle quite frequently with a number of cycle groups in the local area, and I find that also is just a beautiful way to spend time with people. You don't have to hit the nuclear self-destruct button to go and find adventure. And what I found is adventure is a mindset. Adventure isn't going off and traveling for a long period of time. Your life is how you spend your days. It sounds so simple, but the way in which you push yourself, you challenge yourself, you get outside and do things with community, with people, that's life, and that is adventure. Adventure is pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. It's doing something new. It's thinking about the mundane things you do in life and thinking, how can I tell a story about this? Adventure is public speaking if you're scared of that. It's making your first YouTube video. It's doing something you feel passionate about but are scared to do. That is adventure. We only have so long on this planet. I years ago read a blog. The blog's called Wait But Why, and the blog article's called The Tail End. And in there he talks about how a life is only so long, and how, for example, if you swim once a year in the ocean, and if you're like me, 34, and you're gonna live to, I don't know, say 74, I've only got 40 more swims for the rest of my life in the ocean if I continue that rate of one a year. That the things you do in your life, you've got to prioritize who you spend time with, the things you do, and don't sit in watching TV on a Tuesday night. Go out and go and enjoy the local area where you live. Go for a walk, get your tent, go camp on a hill, go into a cave if you've got them nearby. I'm lucky enough to have sea caves locally, and I love going there on a weekend and camping there with a little campfire. It's one of my favourite things to do. And you can do that too, but you've got to find your thing, your way of doing it, and not just copy me. Whatever that means for you, go and push yourself and challenge yourself. I hope this video left you with some good thoughts, some good lessons. I will see you on the next one. If you haven't subscribed, that'd be great if you could, and I'll see you on my next video.